Today we're doing a little Bookwild's birthday book haul. I got a ton of bookish gift cards for my birthday a few days ago and had so much fun picking out physical books to buy. And most of them, almost all of them, are books who the author I've had on the podcast, and I just like have to have the physical book trophies since they've been on the podcast. So wanted to go through this little haul with you guys, and if you're a thriller fan, almost all of these are going to count as great recommendations for you. Also, I've literally never been able to hold a book up because I just read on my Kindle, and then when I review them, I don't have the physical copy. So I'm so excited to hold the book up. This is The Hurricane Blonde by Hallie Sutton, who is one of my co-hosts and one of my coolest friends who knows the coolest random facts about things. This is a Hollywood thriller, so you know that I really loved it, about a woman who works a Stars 6 Feet Under tour. And years ago, her sister was a really famous actress who was found dead in a pool. And when Salma, the main character, is doing one of the tours, she arrives at a pool and finds another woman face down in the pool, and she basically has to dive into what happened to this woman and what also happened to her sister. If you love Hollywood thrillers, if you love noir, if you love commentary on fame, this is one you got to pick up. I also have an episode with Gare and Hallie where we talk about this book, so you can go listen to that too if you want. Okay, so the next one I had to show you was The Woman Inside by E.G. Scott, and they are special because they are the hosts of Imposter Hour that is on the Bookwild Collective platform, so naturally I had to get one of these. The other really cool story is my co-host, Gare, had loved this book forever when he convinced me to read it, and it is so good, and it helped also form the relationship I now have with Liz and Greg, who are the writing duo behind this book. This is about a very toxic marriage between Rebecca and Paul, and Rebecca didn't think she ever would get married until she met Paul. Now they've been married 20 years, and there's some toxic games going on in their relationship. Paul is having an affair, Rebecca has figured out about it, and then the woman he was having an affair with starts stalking both of them just as women start disappearing. This one is bonkers. It is absolutely amazing. It is such a fun psychological thriller. You want to pick this one up too. The Man on the Train by Debbie Babbitt. I burned through this one. My co-host Gare also told me I had to read this one, and he was so right. This one follows a district attorney who basically wakes up one morning and has the police at her door, and her husband is not there, and they are looking for him in relation to a murder that happened. All of a sudden, she starts finding out things about her husband's past, kind of his childhood, that are relatively alarming, and she's basically in a race to figure out who actually committed the murder at present and trying to clear her husband's name, all while being very concerned about all the secrets he's been keeping. I also had Debbie on the podcast to talk about this book, so you can go listen to that. Hurt for Me. Let's have a second for this cover. I mean, come on. Hurt for Me by Heather Levy was one of my absolute favorites that I read in 2023. I was completely obsessed with this. I could not put it down. It is about Ray Dixon, who survived being kidnapped and trafficked as a teen, and now at present she is Mistress V with her own personal dungeon, and she's basically kept her past as much separate from her present as she possibly can until one of her clients turns up dead, and now the police are starting to investigate her and her business. She basically is trying to figure out who actually did it before the police start closing in on her as the suspect, and trying to keep her own daughter kind of safe in the mix of it. This one is dark. It is sexy. It is a really neutral and non-judgmental exploration of BDSM as a culture and the ways that it can really be practiced in healthy ways as well. And is also a story about Ray truly gaining control over her life again, which is always a really cool theme for me. But the suspense is off the charts as well. This is a really, really unique book. And Gare and I also talked with Heather about this one, so you can look for that episode as well. This is The Girls Are Also Nice Here by Lori Elizabeth Flynn. And fun fact, this one was recommended to me by Ashley Winstead, and she was so perfect with this recommendation. I loved this book so much. It is about Ambrosia, she goes by Amb, who returns to college for her reunion and starting to get some menacing messages while she's there, threatening to expose something that happened when they were in school with her kind of larger than life, very enigmatic friend, Sully, at the time. Both of them start receiving really threatening messages as they're at the reunion. And by going back and forth in the timelines, we start to learn what happened years ago and who is coming after them for it. I also got to interview Lori about this one, so you can look for this episode too. And speaking of Ashley Winstead, I can't believe I did not have a copy of this book yet. This was the first book I interviewed her about, and it was my second episode of the podcast was about this book. If you're a thriller reader, you probably have heard of it, but this is another dark academia. It goes through multiple perspectives, but our main character, Jessica, is returning to Duquette College, where her group of friends suffered the loss of one of their friends, Heather, years ago when they were in school together. And same concept. They all get together for a reunion, and through the alternating timelines and POVs, we start to learn what actually happened to Heather and the really dark secrets that are lurking in their friend group. This book is just classically amazing. I will never forget about this book. It is just some of my favorite dark academia ever, and it's what introduced us all to the wonderful Ashley Winstead. Okay, this might be my favorite book cover that I own. Look at that beautiful, shiny dark academia school right here. Is that not beautiful? This one, I had to give a shout out to Alexis Henderson, who sent me this. This is a UK copy of the book, and I am just obsessed with it. It is so beautiful. I am also completely obsessed with this dark academia, psychological, magic, horror, fantasy, thriller mashup, like all of the genres I could ever love in one book. Sign me up. But this one follows Lennon, whose life has kind of been falling apart. And then she receives this vague invitation to a school in a hidden pocket of Savannah that helps teach the students how to force their will onto other people. So she's been chosen because they know that she partially has the powers and just needs to hone them at the school to be a really powerful force. Once she gets there, there's a lot of exploration of consent in the sense of forcing your will on other people. She starts to get attracted to her academic advisor. There's a lot of blood and some great horror aspects that come in at the end of it, but just truly a fantastic thriller. I was hooked the entire time. I don't know if it's going to be a series. I don't think Alexis knows, but I'm kind of crossing my fingers because I love the characters so much. But you're not left on a cliffhanger, so you don't have to worry about that. And if you loved Ninth House, I would even almost say like Ace of Spades, you're going to love this one. Hush to Your Sister by Audra McEllier is fantastic for spooky season. So if you're watching this at the time, around the time that I recorded it, and you're looking for some kind of spooky, gothic, thriller vibes, this is what you want to pick up. This is about a woman named Annette Taylor who experienced a fall down the stairs recently and is recovering and basically can't move around her house. And her health is getting worse, and she feels like weird things are happening in the house where her estranged sister is now taking care of her. Her ex-fiance and her best friend start to get suspect about what is happening, and they basically help her figure out what is going on in this wild gothic mansion. Audra has been on the podcast 3 times for all of her books now. She's an auto-buy author for me, and you've just got to check her books out. This is a kind of 3-for-1 because I got the entire Nena Night trilogy. This is one of my favorite spy thriller trilogies ever, and the author Yasmin Ongo has been on here for all 3 books. So if you get into them and you just have to hear more about them, you can listen to all of her episodes. But the gist of the series as a whole is that Nena was adopted by a wealthy family who also kind of has this global conglomerate that is helping different nations, basically. And she is essentially an assassin for the organization. So it has all those spy thriller vibes. She's an assassin. She's a badass. And in the first book, it's also covered throughout all of them. But in the first book, you also learn a lot about her horrific childhood and some really difficult things she went through before she was adopted into the Knight family. And it makes some of the story arcs in the future related to revenge very, 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 very satisfying. So I love a spy thriller. I love a badass female assassin, and I love revenge. So I absolutely adored all 3 of these, and I have episodes about all 3 of them too. And then this is one that I just had to get for myself because it is also going to be probably in my top 3 for 2024. No Road Home by John Fram. This one follows Toby and his queer son Luca, who are going to visit his wife's family for the first time, the Wrights. And they are a televangelism family that has gotten very wealthy off of broadcasting their version of Christianity. When they get to the Wright's house, Toby starts to feel like there are some nefarious reasons that they are being brought into this family. And he basically has to figure it out and protect his son before anything too crazy starts to happen. Crazy stuff does start to happen. This is a fantastic gothic thriller that really looks at a healthy and beautiful bond between a father and his son, and also includes what I would call paranormal light. Like, this does fall into horror if you were looking at genres and like where this would be placed, but it's very like paranormal horror light. So if you love a gothic thriller, if you love bad rich people maybe getting what they finally deserve, you've got to pick this one up. I also talked with John Fram about it, so you can look for that episode. So yeah, I feel like I had a very successful birthday book haul. I love all of these books. I'm so excited to have physical book trophies of them. And let me know in the comment section which one you're interested in. And definitely let me know if you read one. Okay, now for the ones that I don't necessarily have episodes with, but that I did get last week. The Hunter's Daughter, going to be one of my absolute favorites of 2024 that I read. This is another one where my co-host Gare told me that I needed to read this one, and he was so right. This is by Nicola Solvenek, and it is about a woman named Anna Correa, who is a police officer at this point, but in her past, her father was arrested for being a serial unaliver. And when she has to go out on a call and experiences a really traumatic event at someone's house, basically all these memories that she thought she'd kind of stuffed down start coming back up. And at the same time, women start showing up unalived, arranged in the same way that her dad was arranging women years ago. So she's trying to figure out how that's possible, and the whole time there's just this dread in her mind of being related to someone so terrible and what that can possibly mean. The suspense is wild. I could not put this down. This is one of my favorites of 2024.